I've seen so many pictures of Leon's dick. It is absurd.
Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
It is our basic human right to be fucked up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
Hello and welcome to Occultae Veritatis podcast. I'm Ood Gallifrey.
Sage Murray.
Richard Bigley.
Leon Filger.
And in studio with us,
Valhalla.
So today we're going to talk about police training. Now, we want to do an acab episode, but it's a huge subject.
There's so much.
Very big.
So I want to go piece by piece, and today we're focusing on when you get in the academy, what are you taught that makes this brutality happen at the other end?
All cats are beautiful. Always carry a Bible.
I just called a cab, that's all. A cab.
This is a very sobering episode, but to sober up, we need to be drunk first. So let's go to What's Your Poison?
So, what's your poison?
This is Thirsty Ferret Beer.
It comes from the Latin word little thief, which from what how everyone speaks about them sounds about right.
Yeah, I had a ferret named G, and she stole pencils and rubber containers, like rubber cooking ware, like muffin tins and all that. My boy Dexter stole bras and tennis balls, and my boy Gus stole erasers and ice cubes. And Gus would steal ice cubes right out of my fucking cup while I was drinking them. He wanted me to see him steal the ice cube.
Brewed, I guess, in Blandford, Dorset, the United Kingdom.
This needs a bottle opener.
Not twist tops. Thanks, demon.
No problem.
Sweet,
Your
sweet
Highness, I don't know what you are.
You are.
I am everything, but also nothing. It's fine.
Only 4.4%.
You know what, Sage? We're not in the mood for your shenanigans.
Badger, smite her.
I can't.
Oh, Badger Dorset Brewers.
These bottles seem to have been shaken extensively prior to we open them because everyone has spilled. There's beer on my pants. There's beer on Ood's couch.
Yep.
I don't understand why I don't hate it because I don't.
Like, I think there's enough malt to give it a bit of a sweet thing to it than to overrule the hops. Like, it's a very malty kind of flavor. I don't mind it. I don't mind this. This is okay. It's a little heavier than I might want to do, but it's pretty good.
Oh, I definitely don't mind it. It's just like way more malty than I like. I like hoppier beers.
I don't know. You'll have like one, and I think that would probably be sufficient, you know? Yes. It's not like an original 16 where you need like another and then another and then another. You know, you can kind of stop at one with this one.
Yeah.
It's got a midway flavor. So like you sip it and there's nothing and then there's a thing and then it's done.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You know? Does that make sense? I feel like.
Yeah. I feel like I'm on the roller coaster to complexity and I'm riding up that. I'm riding up that and then I get to the hump and then it just like plateaus.
The UK Chief Medical Officer's Office recommends adults do not regularly drink more than 14 units a week.
So 2 a day a week. Days two a day.
Sorry about it, UK Medical Officer.
Don't tell me what to do, Mom.
You're not my mother. You're not my real mom.
I mean, the Queen's still in charge of us all.
She's not my real mom.
Why don't going to get rid of the monarchy?
I don't know.
Abolish the monarchy.
I get asked that concerningly often.
Okay,
It's kind of weird in 2020, right?
My rating is that Goddess Satana Valhalla looks like she's mopping up after really sloppy sex, and it's a mild turn on out of 10.
There was a lot of
has
mopping
gone
up.
down to my ankles.
Yeah.
I don't like hoppy beers because they hurt my tongue, and I'm kind of a wuss that way. But like I like beers that have kind of like a bit of a complex flavor as much as I can taste. But like this one doesn't really approach it, so I'm going to give it like a 5 out of 10. But there's a ferret on the bottle, +2, 7 out of 10.
Okay, well, I am going to give it like a 5.5 out of 10. It's pretty malty. Normally, I'm not super into malty beers, but this isn't like too overpoweringly malty.
Yeah, it's not overpoweringly malty, and it's not overpowerfully, it's not too powerful with the hops.
It's not hoppy at all.
I think the flavor is like this nice balance. I get a little bit of like a lemony hint off of it.
It's a dessert beer.
Like you can taste a bit of a little hint of lemon in that, a little bit sour but kind of fruity at the same time, kind of thing.
I'm gonna get that. It's a little sharp. Yeah. Kind of like a Mexican ale, like that little bit of citrus kind of thing.
Well, to keep along with the theme, I'm going to give it 2 Leon glances out of 3.
I will give it 2 Leon glands out of 3.
Glands?
He has all his glands. He's uncircumcised.
Delightful.
Occultae Veritatis, one of the only podcasts that hangs dong. Tell your friends. This is a recording of a police officer directly after he was pulled over by another police officer. I think it's an interesting clip to start out with because you hear the terror in his voice as he realizes the very things he was trained to do are now threatening his own life in the hands of another police officer.
That was the most scary encounter ever. Let me tell you why. Now you see how it feels when the sheep becomes the wolf. But it was very scary because now you got a wolf pulling over a wolf. License registration, got that. Is there a reason that you took from Marlboro Pike the Beltway to get on Allentown Road when you could have just went straight through Forestville Road? Like, in my brain, I can go where the fuck I want to go and drive where the fuck I want to drive. But that's not what scared me. What scared me was the second question. Do you have any knives, guns, or bombs in the truck? Listen, his whole demeanor changed. But he didn't let me just say yes. I said yes. Knives and guns. His whole demeanor changed. Backed up, put his hand on his weapon. I said I am law enforcement. I have all the credentials to show you. This man's hand stayed on his weapon. He said, well, let me see him. Fuck no. I'm not reaching. Fuck no. I'm not reaching into my pocket. Turn the light on. Where my gun is on my hip. I told him that. Then I said, could you please turn on your body cam? It was off. All police officers have a body cam they're supposed to wear. It's a little box. If you don't see that red light, don't you do shit. You understand? Scared because a bullet don't give a shit who you are. You hear me? He was nervous. Then he said, what do you have in the car? I said, I have knives. Where are they? In the ceiling. See the knife? He said, where's the gun? On my hip. I got all the credentials. My wallet is in my right pocket. You can get it. No, the fuck I can't. No, sir. You can get it with your body cam on. I reached for my cell phone, which is on my dad's. I put my hand up and grab my cell phone. You're not going to need that. That could have went really bad. Just by the wrong response, it could have went really bad. Y'all be careful out there, man. I understand what y'all feel. If you don't know this, when an officer pulls you over, you have a right to demand for a lieutenant or a sergeant or somebody in charge. Grab your phone. When they pull you over, you dial 911. And they're coming. When they lift their phone up, how can I help you? The officer was pulling me over. I need your help. I feel scared. He is in uniform, but I just don't trust the situation. They will send him to you. They have to now. I'm the bad guy Flex, man. That was a nervous situation for me. Y'all please be safe, man. Drive right, don't give them no motherfucking reason, all right? I love y'all. I'm glad I'm driving away. God damn it, that could have went bad.
In conclusion, favorite beer, Linger's Dick. We're going to talk about justice today. I feel that there's a tendency with people that grow up, like in a society, that they believe that what they were born into is the right answer, is adequate. And I think that's what's going on with, like, justice in America right now. Right. Because a lot of people in America look at the cops and they say, oh, well, that's justice, right? I think of it like Plato's theory of ideal forms.
Imagine prisoners that have spent their entire lives chained deep inside a cave. They have been chained so that they cannot see behind themselves, and they are forced to stare endlessly at the cave wall in front of them. Behind them, a fire is burning, and between the prisoners and the fire is a raised walkway. Now imagine that each day, a menagerie of objects crosses the walkway. Animals, and people carrying their wares to market. Their shapes create an intricate shadow play on the wall in front of the prisoners. This is the only world that the prisoners have ever known. The shadows and the echoes of unseen objects. Now, imagine that a prisoner is released. After some time adjusting to the blinding light, the freed prisoner will begin to experience the world outside of the cave for the very first time. And it is like nothing he could have ever imagined. With his new perception of the world, the man will of course want to return to his friends to share his incredible discoveries. But the prisoners cannot recognize their old friend. He appears as all things do. His voice is a distorted echo, and his body is a grotesque shadow. They cannot understand his fantastic stories of the world outside of the cave. To them, it will never exist. This, of course, does not make the world outside of the cave any less real.
I know that's a very hidey-tidy way to put things, but I think that's what's going on in the mind of a lot of people who seem satisfied with the current state of the police. They're staring at the cave wall. They're satisfied with what they've been told has been justice. What they are told are the people that take care of us. And they haven't really thought about or contemplated or recognized what a real, functioning, moral, and community-oriented policing effort could be. But they're just happy staring at the cave wall, satisfied with the shadows dancing before them of what the police are now. I think a bunch of people have fallen in love with the idea that the police, as they are right now, are in a proper form. Yeah. They are ideal justice. And I don't think people understand that that's not the ideal form of justice. Beating innocent people, shooting unarmed people, like talking people out of their own right. This is not the form of justice we need to fight for.
Pushing over like 80-year-old men.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
like,
Buffalo.
Like, is this working for people? Like, are you satisfied with this? Like, I'm not. Like, this isn't... We have so much to work on. And so, just to focus this, to prevent me from going off on a total, 3-hour rant, I focus this on police training. I could go into the prison industrial complex. I could go into, like, how racist, like, the general American is and how that might attribute to that American becoming a police officer. I can go into socioeconomic statistics. Like, there's so many different areas that I could jet off into, but if I talk about everything, it's going to be a jumbled mess. First thing I want to make clear here is that American police kill more civilians than any other police force in any other wealthy country on Earth. By a wide margin. Per 10 million people, the United States kills around 33.5 every year. Per 10 million. In Canada, it's 9.8. In Australia, it's 8.5. In the Netherlands, it's 2.3. Now that's the number per 10 million. This is the average number of people killed in the countries every year. United States still first of the pack by a long, wide margin. About 1,099, about 1,100 people killed every year by police. In Canada, it's about 36 people killed every year by police. In Australia, it's 21 people killed per year by police. Now, this doesn't count the deaths that are caused by police but are discounted. Maybe the district attorney doesn't agree that the police caused it. Maybe it's considered a different kind of death, technically, but if the police became involved, they caused the death. But it's not counted as a police death anyhow. It's not even counting the injuries. It's not counting the lives that these police officers ruin through misapplication of justice. These are the people that are killed by American police every year, far higher than any other country. Now, this doesn't give an excuse to other countries. They still have brutality. They still have corrupt cops. They still have cops that kill people, maim people, skirt the law, make the world an overall worse place by being in it. And they're paid by their own home government, so they're paid government agents. This isn't a free pass for every other nation on Earth. Every other nation on Earth has a problem with authoritarian cops that they need to solve, but this episode is going to be focusing mostly on American cops because, lordy, do they have a monopoly on the cop problem. Or at least they're a shining example of the cop problem. The United States imprisons more people than any other, anywhere on Earth per capita, and the police are an essential part of keeping that corrupt system going. You have to have people continually going into the prisons. Why is police training inadequate?
Right.
What are we doing to these police officers when they enter the academy that's producing this after effect of them being seen like cruel and them not really caring about the well-being of the people they work for? And there's several factors. There's inconsistency in training. The police departments all across America train in different ways. Like, I like to think of it like a fast food restaurant. Like, when you go to McDonald's, when you order a Big Mac, you want to get something that looks like a Big Mac. And that's why McDonald's and like other fast food companies, they work so hard to make sure that it's delivered the same way every time, so it's consistent. American policing isn't like that. When you go to a different state or a different town or even just a different part of a town where like a different police precinct is in charge, you don't know what kind of justice you may be getting. You don't know what training those police may have gotten. And it leads to areas where like police are much more harsh than others.
There are recent events that have pushed the relationship between police and the community to its limits. The use of force is a necessary part of the job, but even a single tragic event can cast a shadow over police departments around the country.
We can build confidence and we can build trust, but it's not going to happen overnight.
WNC and Investigate started digging into the real numbers, building a database to find out just how often our local police departments use force, and more importantly, how they keep track of it.
You can see some interesting trends here.
We brought our data to Chris Brook, legal director for ACLU North Carolina.
I think it's a really good opportunity for law enforcement communities throughout our state to look at their use of force policies.
Compare the number of times officers used force to the total number of calls for service, and across the board, you'll find it's a pretty tiny percentage.
Most interactions between the public and law enforcement do not end in a use of force situation. But, one tragedy is one tragedy too many.
On the surface, Raleigh PD has some of the highest use of force numbers with more than 1,000 incidents each year. They gave us the stats but declined to go on camera. They also keep some of the most inclusive records, which has a major impact on the numbers. And that's when we noticed it's the record keeping that is drastically different between cities.
The use of force almost automatically generates questions from others that aren't directly involved with it. We are empowering and authorizing these men and women to take away other people's civil rights and to take away their freedoms.
Brandon Zudema is the police chief in Garner. His department has some of the highest numbers compared to other towns its size, but they were also very detailed in what they consider use of force.
What I know is that our officers, when they have to use force, they do, and they use it correctly.
Like Raleigh, Garner PD keeps track of every time an officer even points a weapon, which was the most common type of force they used.
People tend to understand that if they have a gun drawn on them, that the officer is serious about what they mean, would much rather have compliance than actually having to apply a physical force or a taser or a baton or, heaven forbid, a firearm.
Zudema says for his department, it's about being able to justify every incident.
And it's also about transparency. It's about making sure that the community knows what we do and, more importantly, why do we do it.
And that brings us to Durham.
You're trespassing on city property. You must leave the property immediately.
Durham police have faced some of the most notable use of force incidents, but their records tell a much different story. Take December 2013, for example. Most of the other departments we talked to say they count each individual officer's use of force. Durham does not. After this protest, the department only logged 2 uses of force that day, 1 physical and 1 use of taser. And even though tear gas was dropped to clear the crowd, it wasn't listed. And the discrepancies didn't stop there. Durham PD also does not keep track of how often their officers point their weapons.
And during one of our phone conversations, I asked the chief, why not? He said because officers pulling their weapons happens all the time.
In their 2014 report, the use of firearms was nowhere to be found, only a category called Other, even though police shot a man in July and fired at suspects in December. And in 2013, a Durham officer shot and killed Jose Ocampo during a call. We checked the dates, and that incident isn't even recorded in their use of force records. That same year, officers also shot and killed Derek Walker, who was waving a gun downtown. But in their use of force reports, it's only listed as a use of physical force, not a firearm.
Also, inadequacy in training. So police go to school sometimes as little as 360 hours.
What?
Yeah. On average, they go about 600 hours. So this is what they have to learn in 600 hours. They have to learn the state and federal laws. They have to learn about mental health training, first aid training, driving training, equipment use training, firearm training, hand-to-hand combat, criminal law, constitutional law, sociology, physiology, conflict resolution, filling out paperwork, and a bunch of things that I didn't even name.
The Indiana University Police Academy curriculum consists of 14 weeks of instruction in the summertime, a variety of topics, practical skills such as firearms, emergency vehicle operations, defensive tactics. We focus on everything from hazmat to first aid to crisis intervention to just general interpersonal skills.
We are tough on our students. It is not a program for the faint of heart. Our PT standards, our values, our morals are taught throughout there, and not everyone succeeds. We do that to strengthen the integrity of the program.
We meet every day at 0600, 6 a.m. And we bring the whole class together for an hour of really vigorous physical training. We're going to push you to your limit. And if you commit yourself, at the end of 14 weeks, you'll be standing up there receiving your badge.
Okay, well, it's 360 divided by 12 months.
That's 75 days at 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, police training in America, and
that was better.
And like I'm
like 1 hour a day.
I'm going to be talking a lot about America in this one, but don't kid yourself. Almost every wealthy country on Earth has some aspects of police that are abusive, that violate rights. That
definitely including Canada.
Oh yeah, like we just had an incident in our hometown just a couple weeks ago of an Indigenous person being beaten for no good reason by a bunch of cops.
They like sat on him. Like there were like 8 officers. They sat on him, and another one like punched the shit out of him at the same time. Like it was bad. I posted the video on Twitter.
Yes, you did.
Go look for it.
So just to give you an idea of how inadequate that is. So what do you need bare minimum to professionally work with mentally ill people? Bare minimum, like entry level working with mentally ill people professionally. You need 3,000 to 4,000 hours of training. And police, as much as 25% of the people they run into are mentally ill.
Yes.
Proper training to know the basics of the law. So basically a Law 101 course. Learning the law enough to enforce it. Estimated time to learn that, 4,000 hours. Police don't get that.
No.
And what protects police behind all this inadequate training? It's something called qualified immunity. Police are allowed to make mistakes. They're allowed to violate rights because they don't fear being punished, because they have a qualified immunity to being sentenced for breaking the law while they're trying to, pursue justice in other cases. That's why they can break the law so often and not face any punishment.
What should happen when a government agent violates your constitutional rights? Congress actually answered this question back in 1871, when it passed what would become our primary civil rights statute. Today, we call that law Section 1983, after its place in the U.S. Code. It says in plain terms that any state actor who violates someone's constitutional rights, quote, shall be liable to the party injured. That's it. And the reasoning behind this law is obvious. People whose rights are violated deserve a remedy, and that remedy promotes accountability among public officials. But the Supreme Court has effectively gutted Section 1983 through the invention of a doctrine called qualified immunity. This innocuous-sounding term is a defense that state officials can raise in civil rights cases, even if they've broken the law. According to the Supreme Court, but contrary to the plain language of Section 1983, it's not enough to show that your rights were violated. You also have to show that the defendant violated clearly established law. In practice, that's a very difficult standard to meet. It requires civil rights plaintiffs to show not just a clear legal rule, but a prior case with functionally identical facts. In other words, it's quite common for courts to say, yes, your rights were violated. But we can't find a case where anyone's rights were violated in quite the same way. So you lose. The practical effect of qualified immunity is that public officials, especially members of law enforcement, routinely get away with horrific misconduct. The Supreme Court's rewriting of Section 1983 denies justice to individual victims, and it undermines our best tool of ensuring public accountability. Qualified immunity is an unfair, unjust, and unlawful shield for government agents, and it's time we abolish it.
Recruiting. So there's a big drum that people bang that we need more African American cops, we need more woman cops, like on all that.
Sounds really liberal.
Yeah. And like at its very base, that idea is valid. Like listen to my argument here. You want people from your own community that are familiar with your values, are familiar with you, to be policing you, ideally. Where this idea gets sullied is these same people go into the same police training and get trained by the same biases and get pressed into the same mold, and they have the same result in the end. And plus, how recruiting works is they pick the most aggressive members out of a lot of communities, like communities that represent a lot of aggressive traits, so they won't hesitate when they need to act. And that's what sullies the pool. Like, it would help if police training was adequate to have more diverse hiring. But when police training is inadequate, you're just training a diverse group of people how to abuse citizens.
It's like the lyrics in NWA's "Fuck the Police," where they're like, on the other hand, without a gun, they can't get none, but don't let it be a black or a white one, because they'll slam you down to the street top, black police showing up for the white cop.
Yeah.
Like that, it's the same shitty thing, and it's more diverse, but it's still the same shitty thing.
Yeah.
It's the same shitty mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you can bake cookies and you can use like the most scrumptious chocolate and you can use like just the best flour and like all that shit. But like if you put it all in the same shitty oven, you're gonna get bad cookies in the end. Yeah. So recruitment's a big problem around that. A former police chief, Donald Grady, he now fights against these same practices. He says that there's a certain amount of aggression that they look for in a person. If you're too docile, they don't pick you. I've known people to be rejected from police departments because they weren't aggressive enough. We're hiring people based on level of aggression because we feel that they're going to act. A former police chief who served for 30 years came out about the problems with his recruitment techniques that he did under his service. He was quoted as saying, "There's a certain amount of aggression they look for in a person. If you're too docile, I've known people to be rejected from police departments because they weren't aggressive enough. Why are we hiring people to do policing because of their level of aggression? I can teach someone to be appropriately assertive. What I can't do is pull unreasonably aggressive tendencies out of a person." So this is a retired police chief saying that even he thinks there's a problem with them hiring overly aggressive people as a rule of thumb to be police officers. Another thing that's wrong with policing is that sensitivity training, racial bias training, things like that have been shown not to work. If somebody is inherently sexist or racist or bigoted in some way, a 16-hour course on sensitivity training will not remove those built-in biases. I grew up in a racist household. Every day I search my mind for little bigoted thoughts and try and cast them out, and I try and live a little better every day, kind of trying to unlearn what my community taught me about indigenous people around me. And I still have racist impulses and thoughts in my head, despite my self-reflection and despite my work to correct them. So thinking that a 16-hour course will fix a racist police officer is foolish. You're not going to change that fundamental, twisted belief unless you're open to it. And if you do, it's going to be a long process to unravel all the bigotry that you may have inside of yourself. Police training. So these are things that would help police training, and things that police should teach, but they often don't. An example is de-escalation training. There are 34 states out of all of the U.S., and many countries in the world that don't teach de-escalation training. So 34 states out of the U.S. don't teach de-escalation training. De-escalation training is like making space between you and the person that you're interacting with, slowing things down, like lowering the stakes, not making things as aggressive, like trying to end things as like harm-free as possible.
I was taught that working in a halfway house for federally convicted men working a little bit more than minimum wage 10 years ago.
Yeah. And the fact that like the majority of police departments don't teach it. And when I say don't teach it, they don't focus on it. Like they may have a couple like pages in their textbook about it, but they're not taught how to do it. Yeah. And on the other side of it, police are often trained that de-escalation tactics, such as intervening with a fellow officer, or slowing things down, or intervening before taking deadly action, stuff like that, will endanger you and endanger your partners. So
but of course the cops don't want that.
Yeah. So they're often taught the opposite, that de-escalation training is a bad thing that'll risk your life and the life of your fellow officers.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Because like I said, like I used to work from 11 o'clock at night until 9 o'clock in the morning with a house of 30 men who are federally convicted of federal crimes, murders, rapists, pedophiles, assaults, fraud, like whatever. Yeah. And I was all by myself with these guys. Yeah. And I was taught those things. And I had one death threat, and the guy ended up coming back 3 months later, giving me a hug and apologizing for being shitty.
I remember you telling me these stories.
Yeah.
You being like, so someone it was super cash, but like I was absolutely told I was going to be killed.
Yes.
And I was like, what? And you're like, yeah, then it's fine. It's all hugs and going through a hard time. And it's what you do.
Another aspect, and like, just to give you an idea, like, I'm going to mention a lot of things, but just to give an idea of like what one change, what difference can make. States that didn't have de-escalation training but then started it had an average 18% drop in cops killing citizens.
Oh,
like,
shit.
18, just from doing that one thing, covering for all other variables, they killed 18% less people.
That's insane.
Yeah.
18%? That's wild.
Yeah. And mental health training. So, like, I mentioned the statistics before. One I didn't mention is people with mental illness are 16 times more likely to be killed by police than somebody who is neurotypical. Because the police don't get mental health training. Like, stuff that looks like mental health symptoms comes across through the police's training as aggressive actions towards them.
Peyton Blau opens up about his bipolar disorder and frequent encounters with law enforcement.
I have two labels I'll carry for the rest of my life: bipolar and convicted felon. They're not mutually exclusive. I've been arrested 6 different times, all the while in a delusional, paranoid state of mind caused by my illness. What you know about society and how people typically behave doesn't apply to me. I enter a department store and it feels right to immediately take off my shoes. I'm convinced the government is plotting to control me, playing carefully selected songs on the radio to persuade me into making a certain decision. So I changed the station just to spite them. I throw 3 fingers up at a public security camera and tell President Obama to read between the lines. No, the rules of society don't apply to me, not when I'm having one of my episodes.
I just raised my hand like this.
My episodes, which are rare, can happen at any time and take many forms, from creating a piece of art to aggressively accusing UPS employees of being government workers smuggling weapons through their delivery routes. I'm able to show you these pictures because my wife has documented these episodes so that we can learn more about myself and ultimately help others learn.
Oh my gosh, this is a mess. You created a studio out here, baby. You look like a true artist.
You see, I'm not alone. More than half of all prison and jail inmates have a mental health issue. You can imagine the kind of reaction someone like me might have when delusions trigger an incident in which a police officer wants to engage with me, or worse, arrest me. 3 of my 6 arrests went relatively well, with police getting me into custody safely. The other 3 were extremely violent because in my head I was fighting for my life. I was tased in the back of the police car in our hospital parking lot with leg irons and handcuffs on. And one of my charges that night were destruction of county property because I broke the leg irons. Thankfully, around 6 years ago, my recovery kicked into high gear. I was asked to share my experiences with officers as part of something called crisis intervention training. In my experience, most officers want to help, but often simply lack the training to know what to do in these tough situations. One time, I was arrested by an officer who I believe naturally possessed many of the things we train. He slowed down and didn't force the issue when I accused him of being an undercover agent. He waited for my brother to come from across town to bring my meds. When I accused him of giving me a poisoned bottle of water so I could take my pills, he immediately offered to take a sip to prove it was fine. There is no doubt we need more officers like this today. I came up with a training sheet which quickly describes for the police how to deal with someone like myself. Let the person think they're in control. Slow down and stay calm. One thing I always tell them is to imagine the person they're dealing with as their brother, mother, or good friend. The biggest shame of my life has been my criminal record, but now I get to take those experiences and help my community.
Well, look at Leon's story.
Yeah.
If the cop that he had did not have that mental health training, Leon could be dead right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Chucking shit at the cop on the top of a roof.
Oh, fuck yeah.
You know?
He could have drawn his weapon and probably fired. He probably would have been like passed by his superiors in doing so.
Mm-hmm. Which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Because Leon is not a violent person. He's in fact one of the kindest and gentlest people I know.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
You know?
Something else that should be taught, but isn't almost anywhere in America, is communication training. Again, there might be a couple pages in the textbook, but there's not direct how to effectively communicate with the public training. They get trained on how to regain control. Yell loud and yell clear, but they don't get specific training a lot of the times about how to talk to people, how to talk people down, how to negotiate with people, how to make deals with people, stuff like that. Stuff you need to do because you shouldn't be Judge Dredd. You should be a communicator and negotiator with the community.
Exactly.
Yeah. Intervention training. This one is taught nearly nowhere. I found a couple police departments that teach it, and this is just the police departments that teach it. It's a brand new thing, and it's intervention training. So the reality is, 3 officers watched George Floyd die.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, 3 officers stood by and watched there. They watched this man have his neck stood on for over 9 minutes and him go unconscious. They're taught that intervening is putting your fellow officers at risk. When you intervene, you are working against your partner because now it's you and the perpetrator against your partner. That's how it's worded in these police training manuals.
Well,
Don't like that.
The one guy, I think, was actually on the force for all of 3 days or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the defenses, that he was only on the force for 3 days. He didn't know what's what, and he couldn't see that this was wrong. He didn't know. No experience, and it's a thing,
Yeah, and there is an aspect of I can't speak to all police departments, but I know in a lot of police departments there's a culture of you don't betray the brothers. The brothers are the blood. It's the brothers and you against the world.
The blue cone of silence, if you will.
That's fucking gross.
Yeah, and that kind of attitude promotes even if you think your partner's in the wrong, you back them up.
Well,
there are 2 types of cops in the world.
Yeah.
There are bad cops and there are complicit cops, and there are no others.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing is there was a case of an officer. I don't recall where. I could probably Google it if someone challenged me on it. But she had intervened in a similar situation where her partner was being aggressive and overly hostile towards a suspect, and she intervened and reported it, and then was dismissed from the force after
I
doing
remember
so.
hearing about that story. Yes, and she challenged it. Now that people have been allowed to or been validated with speaking out against the police.
Yeah, and
she challenged it.
It's hard to remember because this shit happens
all
so
the time.
Often. Fuck. I have trouble, I've been trying to keep up with it. I have trouble, I feel like I don't have any more file room in my brain for, here's an example of police brutality number 6007.
And names, officer whatever, officer whoever. Absolutely.
Carol Horn was her name. She had served 19 out of 20 years needed to collect her pension before being let go.
Jesus, that sounds like some horse shit.
Well, imagine that, hey? They let you go for reporting your fucking shitty coworker, and then they say, oh, and by the way, you needed 20 years of service to get your pension that you paid into, and you were only here for, 19.
Well,
sorry about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, acab and all that, but fuck that corporate bullshit.
Exactly.
Former Buffalo police officer Carol Horn in a battle tonight to get her pension. She was fired for trying to stop a fellow officer she says was abusing a suspect. And tonight she is telling her side of the story to 7 Eyewitness News reporter Kendra Eaglin.
November 1st, 2006, there was a call of an officer in trouble at 707 Walden.
That officer, Gregory Kwiatkowski, who was responding to a domestic dispute inside of that home between Neil Mack and his girlfriend. When Officer Carol Horn went into the house, she says Mack had already been placed under arrest.
He was handcuffed in the front and he was sideways and being punched in the face by Gregory Kwiatkowski.
Horn and about 10 other officers who arrived at the scene helped drag Mack out of the home, but once outside, Horn says Officer Kwiatkowski was out of control.
Gregory Kwiatkowski turned Neil Mack around and started choking him. So then I'm like, Greg, you're choking him, because I thought whatever happened in the house, he was still upset about. So when he didn't stop choking him, then I just grabbed his arm from around Neil Mack's neck.
If that chokehold of a handcuffed suspect caught Horn off guard, it didn't prepare her for what she says Kwiatkowski did next.
He comes up and punches me in the face, and so I had to have my bridge replaced.
Horn says other officers pulled her back when she tried to defend herself. Following that incident, Horn was fired, charged with obstruction for jumping on Officer Kwiatkowski's back and or striking him with her hands. But Officer Kwiatkowski's own words seem to conflict with the charges. In sworn testimony, he says, she never got on top of me. Nonetheless, Horn lost every appeal, her 19-year career over, and she didn't qualify for a pension. The breadwinner for her 5 children, Horn, now a truck driver to make ends meet.
My daughter said, Mommy, why'd you go to work that day? She never said, why did you do what you did, or I wish you wouldn't have done it. She just said, I wish you wouldn't have gone to work that day. So I don't regret it.
Officer Kwiatkowski retired from the police force after he was suspended for choking another officer on the job, a separate incident of punching another officer when he was off the clock, and most recently, Kwiatkowski and 2 other officers were indicted on civil rights charges for holding down a black teenager and shooting him with a BB gun. As for Horn, the city has sent her case to the state retirement system for review. We contacted them for an update, but we haven't heard back yet.
Something that is taught in a lot of police departments are justifiably lethal tactics, like doing chokeholds, like putting pressure on the back and neck. Like, those things are sometimes done off the book by police officers, but a lot of times those are directly trained into police officers to do those things. And so why would police departments train, like, things that have been proven to be, deadly and have proven to be lethal in some circumstances? Is because they have an attitude of, we have to get them and get control of the situation by any means possible before they get us. Like, if we have to step on this guy's neck and threaten his airway to get the handcuffs on him, worth it, because then we're safe. That's the attitude. They're taught lie detection. I know everybody's watched Lie to Me. There's grains of truth in that. There's certain, like, studies that have been done that show marginal signs of stuff, but that's somebody who has studied the art for years, who is with somebody that they know very, very well, that they are in a controlled environment where they control all the variables. It isn't like a cop seeing somebody they never met on the street after, like, learning 1 page about lie detection in their textbooks.
You would literally never fucking know if I was lying.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. You need a baseline. You know, you need that baseline to study that person, their baseline reactions to different situations.
For what it's worth, I'm a professional liar.
You're lying. I saw that right now. You're lying.
Did you notice did you notice how my mouth automatically turned into contempt?
That's right.
My brow furrowed.
Yeah, and your eyes looked slightly to the left, which indicates that portion of your brain was trying to create a fabricated situation. Mm-hmm. No, seriously, this is the kind of shit they teach. You know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Literally everyone knows all that shit. And if I'm lying, I would purposely put my eyes to the right.
Yeah.
Like, go fuck yourself, cops.
Like, okay, if the cops went to college for 12 years and got, like, trained like by psychologists to do this to somebody they're very familiar with, fine. But, like, cops pretending they're, like, walking lie detectors after, like, you know, learning it for an hour in the academy. No. We're teaching our cops pseudoscience. That's what that is.
Yes. I've been to counseling school and I have received more education on detecting lies than cops.
Oh, fuck yeah. And, like,
as a counselor,
somebody being deceptive and somebody being nervous has so much crossover that you can't, like, unless you know that person well, you can't just make that snap judgment.
No.
This is some more textbook stuff. This is what they count as suspicious behavior. Challenging authority, using photographic equipment, not allowing a search, not giving up identity when asked, asking too many questions. This is the full sentence, being difficult.
What?
Not immediately obeying orders, being short or rude. That's all suspicious behavior.
Okay, that sounds like everything that I would literally do.
So if you're under 5'2", you're just
Sorry
being
about
short.
it.
Sorry.
Fuck the police.
Hey, I'm sorry, but I'm not, because I learned from you, and I'm very difficult, so you are also very difficult.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah.
No tea, no shade.
Yeah. And, like, we laugh at how ridiculous that is, but, like, these textbooks say, like, well, like, look for these signs of suspicious behavior, and if you see them, continue pursuing.
Okay, but also...
Hello.
What's going on?
Not much, just walking around.
Videotaping the police department's not a good idea.
Why? You guys are friendly people.
We are, but why are we doing this?
Why wouldn't we?
Because it's a security issue for us.
Is it?
It is?
I don't think so.
It is.
It's public property.
It is public property, but when you start recording our perimeter and our gates and what our activities are, it's a concern to us.
I've only been here for about 15 minutes.
Right. We had officers that drove by and saw you pulling out of here, walking out of here, and said that you were recording them as they left.
I did.
Yeah, and that's an issue. Why are we doing that?
I don't have to have a reason.
You don't have a reason?
I don't have to have one.
Okay. Do you have a driver's license I can see?
I don't.
What is your name?
I'm not going to give that to you.
You're not going to give it to me?
No. Why would I give it to you? I haven't done anything wrong.
Well, you're recording our property, you're recording our building.
Sure.
And it's a security issue for us.
Am I being detained?
You are.
Okay.
Until I can get you identified.
And what's your reasonable,
because I want to make sure that you're not
suspicion?
doing something that's a problem for our law enforcement community.
So in order to detain somebody, you have to have a law that you're investigating, correct? So which law are you? What law do you suspect me of breaking?
Are you looking to create a problem here for us?
No, not at all. I'm being polite and cordial.
I'm being polite and cordial too. So I'm asking for
being
your
a little
name and date of
difficult.
birth so we can identify you.
I don't need to.
And be on our way.
Why would I need to identify myself?
Because I'm asking you to identify yourself.
What's your name and badge number?
My name is Todd Hines. My badge number is 200.
Okay. Your name and badge
We're
number?
recording you just like you're recording
Good.
us.
Yeah, like 216. Okay, good.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'd like to be on my way to go. I mean, you have to have
So are
reasonable...
you refusing to identify yourself?
Well, there's no need to.
3916, can we get...
Are you a
something
supervisor?
here?
Okay. You just called for a supervisor?
I did.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
I don't have any ill will. I'm not here to hurt anybody.
So
I'm
what's
not
the problem
armed.
with identifying yourself?
I don't need to.
You don't need to?
No, it's my right to not.
Oh, so you're looking to create problems is what you're doing?
No, you're just accusing me of that.
Absolutely, because you're refusing to identify yourself.
That's not against the law.
It's obstructing legal process if we have a reason to ask you.
What's your reason? I've asked you that.
identify you. I just told you.
No, but I asked you.
You're recording our property.
I have to
you're
identify
recording what we're
myself.
doing,
Correct. And I have
asked
to
you
identify myself
yourself.
if you have
And you're
a
refusing.
reasonable,
I do.
articulable suspicion. And what is that?
You're looking to create problems, is what you're doing.
Is that what I'm doing? By just
that's
filming
my
and
opinion.
exercising my First Amendment rights?
That is my opinion, yes.
Okay. Well, the good thing is the law doesn't go off your opinion.
But it does when you're obstructing our requests.
You can't. You can request, right? But it's not a lawful order.
It is a lawful order at this point.
And
as soon as my sergeant gets up here, he's going to tell you the same thing.
Okay.
Okay.
I've been rated before Sage. I've been through all kinds of things because of sketchy behavior of others. Not a skin thing for me personally, but an association with things based around what I was existing in.
Yeah.
And that was horrifying in and of itself. I cannot imagine not being of the skin tone that I am.
Yep. Lily fucking white. We are both Lily
Yes,
fucking
we
white.
are.
Yeah.
I think how I'm going to structure this is I did an interview with one of our patrons named Lee, and I'm going to put his interview at the end of these episodes. And he was taught in school, he went to the academy, and he actually went to vocational training. So this is training that's longer and more intensive than normal police training. Like it's years long compared to, so it's considered a quote unquote adequate training. But in this quote unquote adequate training, they first learn the law, and then soon after, their professors and their teachers start telling them how to skirt the law, how to convince the citizens to like give up their own rights, like how to convince a citizen to do a search even though you don't have a warrant, and like stuff like that. Like, well, like I talk about that ideal form of justice again. Like, my envisioned form of an ideal form of justice, this cop should be advocating for my rights.
Right.
He should be making sure my rights aren't violated.
Well, you talked to like 5 years ago, Sage. I'd be like, fuck yeah, check fucking everything.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything wrong. Off you go.
Yeah.
But Sage now is like,
yeah. And like, let's not beat around the bush here. Like, if you're learning in school the law and then how to manipulate citizens into not protecting themselves with the law, you're learning how to manipulate citizens.
That's right.
That's what you're learning how to do. And it's not manipulating citizens for justice, because I would think an ideal form of justice would have the citizens keep their rights and be aware of their rights. This is manipulating people out of their own rights.
right, manipulating citizens in favor of ease of the authority.
Oh, fuck yeah.
We're here is we received a complaint that there's criminal activity going on at your residence. Okay? So, what we have to do, anytime we get a complaint, we have to investigate and say that it's either unfounded or that something, confirm that information.
Okay. So what kind of criminal activity?
So it could be that, drugs are being sold from this location, or that drugs are inside of the location, that type of thing. So what I want to do today, ma'am, is take a look inside.
No, you're not going to take a look inside. You got a search warrant?
No, ma'am, and that's what I want to speak to you about.
You're not going to take a look inside.
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
Okay. Well, let me explain to you kind of our process so you're aware of what is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We receive a complaint, we investigate it, okay? If, it's unfounded, we're out of your hair, you never have to deal with us ever again.
It is unfounded. There's no drugs in my house. I have 2 kids. I'm disabled. Right. My husband is at work right now.
Okay.
Nobody here has a criminal record. I have no criminal record. My husband has no criminal record. We
that.
just moved here from across the street. I've lived over there for 5 years. I just moved over here last month.
Sure.
So, no, you're not. If you give me a search warrant, you can come on in and look all around you want.
This is the thing.
It's not a problem.
Our process for when we have a search warrant is SWAT comes, busts down the door,
That's
goes
fine.
through things.
That's fine.
I don't want to have to do that.
Because nothing's... when y'all damage my stuff and y'all find nothing, you're going to pay me, so it's fine.
Ma'am, this is what I'm asking. Is there a better time we can come back, maybe when your husband is here?
No.
Because here's what's going to happen. If I can go in, make sure you don't have any ninjas jumping out, bazookas laying around, nothing like that, I'm going to say,
I'm the only one over here on this little corner, and people want to call about my black ass being over here in this little corner, minding my own business.
I agree.
It's because they're living in them trashy houses right there, and they're upset that we got the nicest house up here, so they want to call and lie on me. I agree with it's
you,
garbage.
But that seems really unfair. But I have to do my job, okay?
I didn't call you, so.
Okay. And part of that is I have to make sure nothing's going on. If I can say...
There's nothing going on. You smell anything going on around this motherfucker?
No, ma'am.
Does it look like anything's going on around here? Do you see my yard? Do you see my grass cut? I just bought a new car today. I just bought a new car today. Carvana just delivered my car today. That's probably where the call came from, because they're mad. People are mad and jealous. I mind my own business. I've been around this neighborhood for 5 years.
That's why I want to get out of your business.
I don't have a record. My husband doesn't have a record. We don't bother anybody. My kids go to school right up the street, and the teachers love them. They have no problem.
I'm sure they do.
It's bullshit.
This is what the textbook says for pre-attack indicators. Lack of eye contact.
I don't like eye contact. I'm already a check on that one.
Minimal movement. Scanning or looking around.
Yeah.
Stretching or fake yawning.
Yeah. I do that often.
Dramatic movement or lack of movement.
Probably a little bit both.
You move anyway. You look at them. You don't look at them. That's all suspicious, threatening behavior.
Sounds like I'm getting the shit kicked out of me.
They're describing normal human behavior as pre-attack indicators.
Yeah, I ain't looking at any fucking cop in the eyes. Fuck that asshole.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like a cute little 5'4" super white Ukrainian girl.
Yeah.
And I'm sounding like I'm getting the shit kicked out of me.
Yeah. And like once again, let's circle around to what this means. The police are being taught that citizens, when they're exhibiting normal human behavior, are posing a threat to them, and they've been taught about what they do to threats. Lying and obfuscating. Like, police are taught in the academy that they're allowed to lie, and that sometimes you have to lie to make justice, and sometimes you have to mislead citizens in order to get to the bottom of things. They're taught that, like, in a lot of academies, and openly too, because they know they're protected by qualified immunity, and they use that as kind of like a tool in their favor.
Right.
This is just a weird one. In a couple manuals, I just found a bunch of Bible verses, like I guess to convince the religious cops that have a problem about killing. They have a bunch of quotes from the Bible that justify murder.
Ew.
Yeah, just just in case like you have a Jesus part of your mind that might keep you from acting and killing a citizen. Jesus and the Bible endorses it in these parts. So let's cherry pick to convince you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, those are the parts of training that I picked out that were... And you can see how, if you take an average American with their biases and beliefs, and you put
Canadian.
them... Yeah, or Canadian. Let's not give Europeans the pass. I've seen plenty of police brutality in the UK. Like, your problem may not be as severe, but you're being dominated by authoritarian figures as well. Yeah. And not in a sexy way. Just for some comic relief for this extra serious episode, here is WAP. Originally by Cardi B, but in this version covered by Ben Shapiro. Oh, and this specific remix is by iMarkkeyz. That's IMarkkeyz. Enjoy and see you in the after show.
Here's some of the lyrics. You ready? iMarkkeyz. Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. I said certified freaks. 7 days a week. Wet ass P-word. Make that pull-out game weak. Yeah, you effing with some wet ass P-word. Bring a bucket and a mop for this wet ass P-word. Give me everything you've got for this wet ass P-word. Beat it up and catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this P-word right in your face. Wipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top if I want to ride. I do a kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This P-word is wet. Come take a dive. It continues along these lines. And it gets significantly more vulgar. Like, a lot more vulgar. Talk your S-word, bite your lip, ask for a call while you ride that P-word. You really ain't never gonna ask him for a thing. He already made his mind up before he came. Now get your boots and your coat for this wet-ass P-word. Pay my tuition just to kiss me on this wet-ass P-word. Right, so, this is, guys, this is what feminists fought for. This is what the feminist movement was all about.
Oh, no, he didn't. Miss Peaches?
Alrighty, we have a little mail in the mailbag. This is from Ian. Hi folks, I just got done listening to your podcast and there's an issue that I want to share. There's a restaurant with a strong branding presence here in what the U.S. calls Oklahoma. I've sent them messages over the years asking them to change it, as they use a highly caricaturized mascot of a very stereotypical Yupik or Inuit person with a husky. If you guys could spread some awareness and maybe even send them a message to the survey they send out, I'd greatly appreciate it. It's not a headliner, as the restaurant chain only has a few locations, but I live in a very red state, and we could use all the help we can get. Thanks for all you folks do. I really love the show. Sincerely, Ian.
Eskimo Joe's has been a staple in Stillwater since 1975. That logo was actually drawn by an OSU freshman art student. Now one group is calling the name and logo racist, while others say that's not the case at all.
It's been a staple to the community of Stillwater and to the state as well.
people from outside of the state, they hear of Eskimo Joe's and they automatically know, hey, that's in that little town of Stillwater, Oklahoma.
It's a name and logo that's been a Stillwater icon for 45 years, but now more than 1,200 people have signed this petition calling for a change in branding, claiming it's racist and offensive. News 4 reached out to petition organizers and have not heard back. But founder and CEO of Eskimo Joe's, Stan Clark, did respond with a statement that says in part, "We are taking a close look at the opinions some people have expressed and are evaluating the path forward. There's now multiple petitions supporting the name, one with well over 13,000 signatures. One organizer saying the name actually celebrates Eskimo people.
I think it sheds light upon Eskimos, and obviously with the way the social media and Google is now, people can just search for what an Eskimo is and find out their heritage and their background."
Residents we spoke with say they don't see anything wrong with the name, and they plan to continue supporting Eskimo Joe's.
What's there to really be angry about? Who's angry about that? Like, are there any actual people, like Eskimos, that are angry about that here? I just say it's manufactured outrage, really. It's just they're picking stuff to cancel.
Place that Ian talks about is a location, a franchise, a series of restaurants known as Eskimo Joe's. Now, of course, in this age of societal upheaval, where we're learning a lot of our past actions weren't in the best interest of everybody. In fact, a lot of our past actions were plainly bigoted and racist and abusive. We have to look at some of the old institutions that rose out of that old society, and things and businesses that are named after names that Indigenous people don't want to be called, depictions that they don't want to be seen as, are being used to market restaurants in this case, but market sports teams and all kinds of stuff. And Eskimo Joe's is another restaurant in a long line of businesses that is doing that very thing. Now, why is the term Eskimo considered offensive? According to some scholars, it says that the name Eskimo is often meant to say eaters of raw meat in one Indigenous people's language. So calling all the people that live in the northern part of Canada all Eskimos is reductive and inaccurate, and it paints narrow picture of who these people are. The second thing that's wrong with it is the caricature, the very picture that represents the business. It sort of has the same stereotypical pinnings as like some Mexican food restaurant using a stereotypical Mexican with a big sombrero hat and stuff like that. That's the type of caricature of this Inuit person that they're using. And yeah, from what I can see, there's been a bunch of different petitions over the years to change the name of Eskimo Joe's or change the picture that represents the restaurant. And none have been successful so far. Feel free to Google anytime you hear this episode. From what I look up online, there's been petitions all throughout the last few years kind of pressuring Eskimo Joe's to change their image. Who knows, maybe they'll do it one day. But I want to thank Ian for writing in, bringing this to people's attention. You know, if you buckle at the idea of Eskimo Joe's being changed, then just remind yourself to keep an open mind. Maybe some of the things that you assume are normal and assume are acceptable might not be, especially if you grew up in a culture that supports racist things and stereotypes. Always be vigilant to check out your own biases and make sure that you're not causing more harm than good in the world. Yep. So if anybody else would like to write in, just go to ovfeedback@gmail.com. You can tell us about your opinions on episodes. You can ask us questions and we'll answer that. Or you could even just request an episode if you want us to cover something. A good way to pitch it is just to write into the podcast and give a really good pitch for something that we should cover, and we'll bump it up the list. Once again, ovfeedback@gmail.com. I've been Ood Gallifrey. Eat something. Candy doesn't count. Have a good night.